And in terms of what you can do, I like to highlight a couple things, and this is the end. So one, be certain of your path. When we think back to that discovery part, make sure everyone is understanding of where you're going as an organization. Remind them, remind your team, remind yourself on a daily basis, what's my purpose? What's my intended direction? What value are we creating? And as I referenced, there's a couple things that I believe in that I think work well. I think the Heart of Agile works well. I think the personal agility system works well. And then there's some declaratives in terms of technology that I use when I'm consulting organizations. I call them 8Ps. I'll go through that though. So in terms of the Heart of Agile, we collaborate to deliver, we reflect to improve. It's a set of imperatives. It's an attitude. There's sets of behaviors that you can instill inside of your organization. In regards to the personal agility system, it's a way to hold yourself personally accountable, and something that I use regularly that I think helps. It's been a big part of continued accountability across the board. And then when I talk about the things that we walk through our teams with and the companies that we play with are, from a technology perspective, you want to know your platforms, right? You want to make sure that you're implementing technology that reflects the direction and the value and the needs of your business, oftentimes with strong APIs, right? This is where you get that strong integrated possibility. This is where you get the insights. Though the platforms that you choose to partner with are significant. When I'm going through platform conversations, it's not just what's the user interface. It's not just, does it solve this use case? I'm curious about the team. I'm curious about their product roadmap. I'm curious about, the other people utilizing the technology. I'm curious about their responsiveness. I care a lot about the technology that I build my business on top of, and that I help organizations build their business on top of. So that's something for you to think about. Second is partitioning. And so this is giving space. And this is the fun part. You are going to have the opportunity to give your teams the space to solve their own problems. And so if you create an environment to where, I see a lot of large organizations try and standardize use across the board. And 8 years ago, that was needed. Now, you could break it down into smaller teams, empowering them to use the technology that's relevant to them, and then integrate that into the mass picture for you to actually see the outcomes. And a lot of times that can actually help. So it's not one size fits all anymore. You have the ability to nurture and be thoughtful of the teams that you're empowering. And there's nothing more beautiful than someone who identifies a problem on their team and they have the ability to solve it. If you give them the ability and the resources they need to solve their own problems, magic happens, I promise. The permissioning side, again, letting people know what's possible, what's not. So setting up the provisions and the permissions that exist, again, from an audit log perspective, from a regulations and governance perspective, highly important. We talk through those things. And then the perception. So making sure that you know what's happening. You want to see irregular behaviors. The neat thing is that when you're actually able to use some of these technologies, you can use this from a retention perspective, because when people are logging in and logging out, like there's now predictive models that exist in predictive technologies of user engagement and interaction to be able to prevent churn of employees and customers just based on usage data. So you really want to be thoughtful of what you're measuring and understand the impacts it can have. Because if you dig in and identify those patterns, it can be incredibly meaningful for your business. On the people side, on the culture side, permission, again, we come back to it, though it's different. This goes to the permission to play. This is the willingness for them to experiment and come up with ideas, introduce them, and then see the value from introducing it and share in that celebration together.
A safe environment that will allow you to fail, because when you fail, you learn.
We have learning organizations. Yes, exactly. The willingness to be able to, and you have that, protection to say, I'm not going to lose my job if I fail.
Not value anymore.
It's a big deal.
The bizarre thing with that is
fast learning.
That's it. That's it.
The bizarre thing is failure is not a positive. So all organizations, and I can say this especially about mine, they say fail fast and learn. But when you use that term fail, something went wrong, that goes back to the psychological safety aspect.
It's like using the word
nobody wants to acknowledge it. It's just a complete sham of terminology in all organizations, that it's really about, as Jim and Dave said, learning is the key. It's not failing, it's learning. Nobody's going to do everything perfectly, but organizations just don't don't
Brian, I agree with you
understand that. I
there
guess it's the
completely.
best way to
I
say
think
it.
there is a psychology to certain words. There's actually words that I've omitted from my vocabulary. Happy to share those in a moment. The 100%. We think of the training and enablement that exists from preparation. That comes back to the skills gap we talked about earlier. So creating the opportunity for people to be prepared and contribute in a meaningful way. We think about the principles. This talks about having those guidelines, the understanding of, having that intuition of, who are we? What are we here to do? I can, put my hat on the fact that we care about people. We're a customer-centric company, or the fact that, I invest in my team and I show up consistently. You have values, you have guidelines, you have, principles that you use as an organization. Prioritizing those is critical to the adoption of this new technology. And again, that last piece is that passion. And this comes to celebrating our successes. As we reflect on the good work done, as we reflect on the wins and the celebrations to be had, bring that passion, bring that energy and that support into your organization. You see, again, wonderful things happen when doing that as we implement these new technologies.